With so many horror games focused on gore and jump scares, it's nice to come across a game that breaks the mold and actually does something different with a way to scare you. Not just in a short blink and miss it, spooked out by something loud coming at the screen, but in a way that sticks with you. A way that haunts you well beyond the time you finish the game. A game like that exists, and it's available for free. It's just absolute nightmare to actually get your hands on. It's called Irisu Syndrome, and it came out in 2008 as a freeware Japanese game. It got an English translation a few years afterward, and some other translations as well. If you actually manage to get your hands on a copy of it, either through archive.org or some other sites, first thing you're going to notice is that the game operates a little strange. The resolution is really weird. It's like this box. It doesn't really have much in the way of options. You can't change settings for music or anything. All you can do is start the game, check out your rank, which doesn't matter yet, or look at your CGs, which you don't have any of. Doesn't tell you anything, and it's preferable that you keep it that way. This is a game you need to go into blind. Don't look up anything about it. Don't read guides, because chances are they're going to give away a lot about it. Start up the game, and it's a puzzler. Not what I had expected. It didn't really fit the vibe I had thought. There are blocks coming down kind of like Tetris, and you gotta make sure that blocks of the same color hit each other. Blocks that are still up in the air will be able to connect and create combos if they hit another block of the same color. If a block is destroyed, you get some health, which is shown at the bottom of the screen. Run out of health, and it's game over. You move on, you get a cutscene, and then that's it. The game doesn't do a lot to really get you into its vibes, but what it doesn't really tell you what to expect, and that's really important. You don't really know what's going on. I didn't even know that there was text to go along with the CGs until later on. A lot of the stuff in this game you just have to figure out on your own. I didn't know that you could read the text and figure out the story going on behind the scenes. I didn't know how the game's puzzle mechanics work, which you really have to if you want to make it further into the story. I didn't really know what the scoring was about or how the game's inner workings happened. To break things down, the story seems pretty straightforward. A group of university students go to an island for a special occasion. One night, they hear ghost stories from another friend about a supposed witch that haunts the island. Things kind of get out of hand. One friend disappears, then another. And suddenly, our protagonist is left trying to get answers and to figure out just what is going on in this strange place. This is not a game you marathon. You don't just hammer it out in 4 hours and then that's the end of it. This is a game that you try to figure out the mechanics of, take a step back, and revisit it another time. Turns out that progression is tied to mostly the score you get within a single game. It doesn't matter how much you rack up over time. It's always a make it or break it instance with the current match you're at. Higher points you get, the better a chance that something will change with the story. And to go into greater detail would just end up spoiling things. So I would say just be persistent and try to shoot for at least 20,000 in a regular game. It's a pretty deceptive thing. It looks like a visual novel, but it's a puzzle game. But the puzzles also tie into the progression of the story. You go into your games folder and you find that there are text documents popping up as you get through it. Sometimes there are photos. Sometimes there are diaries of the characters. Things just seem out of sorts. The music's real soothing and relaxing, but there's always a bit of an undercurrent, a little bit of an edge. The game over music's just a little too somber for a puzzle game. At times it just feels like there's something trying to claw its way out from under the game's surface. Like it's trying to hold back its true nature, but it isn't sure how to do it. On top of that, when you actually do get far enough, you can unlock a hard mode for the puzzles, which expand on the story and completely recontextualize the first half of the game. It's honestly Like, there's a surprising amount of depth to it. It helps that the puzzle gameplay is good, even if it does feel a little out of place. Maybe that's the point. That this game just feels kind of strung together, like it wants to get something across, but isn't quite sure how to. Kind of like the protagonist of the game. What starts out as a simple story of some students on a vacation turns into a strange mystery thriller and ultimately goes in detail about a very disturbed young woman and her attempts to grapple with the realities facing her. This is not a game that's going to scare you right out the gate. There are no jump scares hidden and waiting to spook you. This is the sort of game where 5 or 6 days after you beat it, you go downstairs, you grab a beer from the refrigerator, and then you just think to yourself, holy crap. That's where the game shines. It's just unnerving. I absolutely love that about it. There's just something about it that really has a lot of charm. The game's attention to detail is just fantastic. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like it so much. It's like every time you revisit it, you notice some new detail, something that slipped your mind. Maybe it's about the music, or the presentation, or the way the CGs are made. But there are all these little tidbits hidden around. Little things that might have slipped your eye, but in the back of your head you knew something was off. It's like every time you come back, the game has some new surprise waiting for you. It helps that the soundtrack is really good, and surprisingly nice while you're completing puzzles, and it knows when to rack up the tension or to change up the tone when needed. And if you really like the soundtrack, the entire thing's in the BGM folder of the game. You just need to look up the proper song titles if you don't want to deal with the original file names. So, if you're looking for something spooky in the month of October that isn't an over-the-top horror game, but something more psychological, something more unnerving, something that'll stick with you well after you're done playing it, I'd recommend trying out Irisu Syndrome. It's available for free. I mean, that's a pretty good deal in of itself. All you really are going to waste is your time if you don't like it. And if you do like it, you might walk away with a lot of questions about the nature of the story, how much of what you saw was real, and what sort of impact it had on the characters. And that's all I've got. Thanks for watching, and I hope you give the game a shot. Take care.